Hello, guys, and happy Black History Month. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with legendary photographer, author, and inventor, Mr. Cecil Williams. How are you today?
Good morning. Very happy for you to pay me a visit today.
Yes.
Good to be able to share some of my experiences about Black history and civil rights history. So, very happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Tell me a little bit about your journey and what led to you discovering that you had a gift of photography.
Well, I started in photography at 9 years old, and I liked to draw before that. And so, seemingly, the camera kind of answered that needing me to create, and I could do it much easier with the camera. And plus, I wasn't very good at drawing anyway, so the camera was, you might say, my cup of tea.
Okay.
And I started at 9, and then at 12, I moved on to better and bigger cameras and more capable cameras. So that's how I kind of carved this out as a career.
Okay. Okay. Tell me about some of your most memorable opportunities when it comes to your photography. So some of the people you've been able to photograph and document.
Well, the camera did open many doors of opportunity for me. In fact, at 14 years old, I photographed the famous Thurgood Marshall arriving on a train in Charleston, South Carolina. And to a 14-year-old, of course, I didn't quite comprehend really all that meant. But it turns out that he was here to engage in what is called the Briggs versus Elliott case in Charleston, South Carolina. So that was an eye opener for me. That was all in the mind of a 14-year-old. All I could think about was that this was a big lawyer coming from New York. And of course, he did engage in what's called the Briggs versus Elliott petition that had gone to the courts. And the people of Clarendon County had gotten together and filed a suit, really for better education for their children.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So why is it important to you to document history? Why is that important to you?
Well, history makes a people or a group of individuals, or for that matter, as it turns out, with race, it helps us to, again, uh, appreciate the sacrifices made by those who might have engaged to make a difference in America. For example, um, under the 14th Amendment and the Constitution, we were supposed to have the same rights as everyone else. However, it wasn't quite that way.
Right.
And so in 1950 or so, that period, Black Americans started engaging in what is now called the Civil Rights Movement period. Um, in South Carolina, I take a little different take on it. If you were to say, do a Google search and put in your search who started the civil rights movement, it would say the Reverend Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, the people of Montgomery, Alabama, in 1954. But the Montgomery incident was, it established the rights of African Americans to ride on buses in Montgomery, Alabama, wherein the Brown versus Board of Education case earlier in 1954 was the Supreme Court decision that really started us on the road and really, in my opinion, started the civil rights movement. And if you can kind of agree with that timeline and that chronology, the big elephant in the room is, where did the Brown case come from? And this is something that I have a personal experience in, because I was there when the brave people of Clarendon County were engaging in activities, and they filed suit. And the basis of it was really to get better education for their children. But it turned out that when the 5 cases that came together to be known as Brown, it did establish that the United States Supreme Court ruled that segregation in public education is unconstitutional. And that was really the beginning of the American Civil Rights Movement. So I feel that I was an eyewitness, and I had the firsthand experiences of being involved in something that was one of the most monumental changes in history. And I look back at that as being the most pivotal event that I've ever had the opportunity to photograph.
And so when you think about from then 9, well, technically 14 up until now, what can you say about your journey as your road to photography?
Well, it can only been done, you might say, with a journey that was created by God, because I had so many opportunities that it just on my own, they couldn't come about just on my own. So I think it's part of my destiny. It was just something that it was meant for me to do.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in life we all maybe have experiences that we relate to that, where something's not really in control. Things just fall in place.
Yes.
And so I feel that that was more it than just my own individual merits on what I was doing. But looking back over those years, I used to regret not being able to go to Montgomery when the bus boycott was going on, and North Carolina when they started the sit-ins, um, and other events that were happening throughout America. And when I look back at it now today through a different lens and from the perspective that I had with those experiences, I could not have been in a better place than South Carolina, because here's where, in my opinion, the American Civil Rights Movement began. Not in Montgomery, not in Greensboro, not with Emmett Till and the unfortunate circumstances surrounding his death. All of these incidents, of course, helped.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, without question, the Reverend Martin Luther King is our most treasured icon of the Civil Rights Movement. It's just that when we come along with a history that predates what he did, even though he did not start the Civil Rights Movement, he nevertheless was the biggest well-known symbol.
Right.
In my museum here in Orangeburg, we of course feature the Reverend Martin Luther King, but we highlight other things that happened before he came into being.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we are in any kind of way belittling his place in history. It's just that we believe that sometimes in America, sometimes in education, sometimes in life, being first does matter. And it was South Carolinians who really started things when it comes down to the beginning of the American Civil Rights Movement.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, with you being a native of South Carolina, Orangeburg, why was it important for you to create the Cecil Williams Museum and have it here in your hometown?
Out of the 16 southern states of the United States, South Carolina was the only state that did not have a civil rights museum. I believe Florida also did not have one, but now they do have one. And when my sister and my wife and I started thinking along the line of maybe creating a civil rights museum, we didn't have millions of dollars as museums take, but we did have a large collection of civil rights photographs, documents, artifacts, and we wanted to bring it about anyway, in spite of the fact that it cost a lot of money to do it. And then I had this building, and it was small, only 3,200 square feet, but we nevertheless wanted to do something, and it didn't appear that the state government was going to do it. So we put together about $60,000, and in 2019 started the first and only civil rights museum in the state of South Carolina. Since then, we have had about 30,000 visitors, and recently, Congressman Clyburn, the city of Orangeburg, the county of Orangeburg, they saw it fitting that they would help this effort. And in April of this year, we will be breaking ground towards a new $4 million museum. Okay. So, sort of, sometimes you say, well, if something starts small, if it goes to no place, well, that's just fate. But it's been my fate that this is something that should have happened. And these individuals and the county and the city and people like Congressman Clyburn, they're helping us make it happen. Okay. So soon, it will be, again, probably about a year or so in the making, but we will have a much larger civil rights museum so that the people of South Carolina can see the events, the artifacts, the photographs of people who really helped to create better opportunities for people living today. When we tweaked the 14th Amendment and the Constitution, these were monumental changes that allowed African Americans to be able to do everything from, you might say, going in a restaurant and getting a hamburger, to getting better job opportunities, to get better opportunities in education, employment, where before we were not allowed to advance very far. But with the civil rights movement, it was one of the most uh, impactful um, periods of change in American history. And certainly we wanted to play our part to showcase South Carolina's part of the American civil rights movement.
Okay. And did you realize that, so the Bible talks about, your gift will make room for you. Did you realize that your gift would just touch so many different lives as far as different people coming to and from various cities, states, coming to visit the Cecil Williams Museum?
Well, you said it better than I could. In a way, I wish I had come at it from that perspective of what you're saying. The Bible says, but it is so gratifying that it seems to be all fitting together. Things are falling into place. We've had now about 30,000 visitors. In about 30 minutes, we will be expecting 50. And it's kind of a push to get them all in here. But nevertheless, we had 52 yesterday from Edisto
Okay.
High School. But we're pulling in people from all over the state of South Carolina, and further than that too. We have people that's come as far as California.
Okay.
We've had some relatively well-known VIPs in here. We've had Bill Clinton, former president. We've had people like Eugene Robinson of the Washington Post. And recently, our efforts to really bring back South Carolina's history, with especially Briggs versus Elliott, to elevate it to its rightful place in history, we filed a petition to the United States Supreme Court on November the 17th to try and take back our name. The Briggs case was the first case of the 5 cases that make up what's called Brown. But Brown, again, is the name of the case, but it started here in South Carolina. And Briggs was the first of those 5, and alphabetically and chronologically, it should have been the first. But we had a governor here by the name of James Burns who didn't want the Briggs case to have the namesake. And so he persuaded the justices to name it after the Topeka, Kansas case. So we filed suit again November the 16th, and on January the 5th, the Supreme Court chose not to hear our case. So we are not discouraged by the fact that after a $300,000 challenge that was headed by a white attorney in Camden, South Carolina, who spent 5 years putting our case together, we're going to just pull back and then do something else to bring it to the forefront that the Briggs case was the first case. You do not get out of law school anywhere in America unless you study the Briggs case as the way it stands with the Brown case. So everybody knows it, and everybody kind of realizes that it was some monkey business with Jimmy Burns, but nobody seemed to want to do anything about it. We are trying to do something about it, and the we in that is that my museum will be engaging in things like this. Not only will we have the opportunity to display, to preserve, collect, and showcase African American history, here's something where we are proactive about bringing back home South Carolina's hijacked history, as it is with the Briggs case of Clarendon County. Some people, of course, embrace what we're saying. We have had news coverage from around the world. In fact, every newspaper in the country, in fact, even out of the United States, Great Britain, we've had 3 conversations with people in great journalists in Great Britain about what we are doing. The fact that this is very definitely a David versus Goliath kind of thing, where a powerful entity like the United States Supreme Court, which most people assume is untouchable, that we would try and take up such a challenge. But when the truth about something is found, people usually go about it to maybe make that change. The Confederate symbols that were all over the South, especially those of the ones like we had here in South Carolina, Ben Pitchfork Tillman, who advocated lynching people and killing people. They brought those statues down. The Confederate statues in Richmond, Virginia, were brought down. And so in contemporary history, we find something is wrong or it's hateful or advocates hurting people, as it was with the Confederate flag, we do something about it. So in the Briggs case, this is our first, you might say, shot at trying to change that history, to bring the Briggs case into its proper place, and that is, instead of the case being known as Brown versus Board of Education, it should be Briggs versus Elliott.
Wow. And why is entrepreneurship important to you when it comes to creating something, inventing something? Why is that important to you?
Just about every advancement in science and technology and that we can ever think about that has made us the world we are today, where digital inventions are helping in health, in transportation, in everything, started sometimes with a single individual. A single individual can impact millions. Look at what the Reverend Martin Luther King did, for example, one individual. Look at what Rosa Parks did. And we have, of course, here in South Carolina, people just as monumental that they may not be known, such as our Septima Clark. Septima Clark really was a mentor to Reverend Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. She taught them in a class in Highlander, Tennessee, 4 months before Rosa Parks sat down. So big things can happen starting really from one individual. So entrepreneurship is something that is encouraged, is something that I feel of myself as being an entrepreneur. When I was trying to find a fast way to digitize my film collection, and the most common way of digitizing film, the methods were too slow, as with a flatbed scanner or dedicated scanners. It would take about nearly a minute to scan just one image at higher resolution. And with a dedicated film scanner, it would take as much as 3 minutes. So I invented a product called the Film Toaster, which made it a camera with a device that enabled me to scan my film sometimes as fast as a 50th of a second. And that enabled me to be able to digitize the film from which the pictures in the museum here are taken from. Back during, of course, my days of photography, we were with film. And all from the time I started in photography until about 1999, we used film to capture images. And then when we went digital, it's a different kind of thing. But trying to find a way to capture those images from the past and then bring them to the forefront is something that still needs to be done with a lot of collections today. We have an early start on it by virtue of my inventing the Film Toaster. And this was, again, me as an individual developing this. So entrepreneurship is something that I would encourage everyone. If you have an idea, it could be a lyric to a song. It could be something that you see is needed. It could be as simple as a new way to lace up your shoes or whatever. No matter how, if you see that there's a better way to do something, that you have come up with something that it has henceforth not been done before, go at it. And of course, we would call that entrepreneurship. And I encourage people to, again, don't give up on your idea or your concept. Go into it, experiment with it, and if you fail, just take the dust off, get up, and start back over again. And that's how people become successful.
Okay, I just have a few more questions and we're going to wrap up. What keeps you so sharp?
Well, I think that being active and really, I'm way past my retirement age, but I think that when people retire, you really lose something. The body is made to be active, and you need to be involved in something. I think the entire employment status that we in the United States adhere to is really could be really directed in another kind of way. I think the people, rather than being encouraged to retire, and of course, when you retire, you always, of course, letting maybe someone behind you take that position or whatever. But still, yeah, I think that you should retire only when you feel like you need to retire, when your performance is not up to par, when you're not as sharp in doing something, and when you want to retire, rather than there just being a set time in your life when your job you're working on or employment says, well, you are 60 or you are 65, you must retire. So I believe in being active, and I think this enables me to have a clear focus on what I want to do. And I'm going to continue as long as I feel healthy enough to, again, not only let the museum that we have created be the last thing that I've become interested in, but there are so many other things that I have a curiosity about, or something that I could do to improve what we experience in life. 8 years ago, I came up with a concept to that I thought that the next frontier in science might be if we could link the computer with the human brain. Kind of give an idea. I didn't go anywhere with that idea. I took notes on what and I thought there might be that it could be accomplished through a magnetic kind of thing, rather than when you go to the movies. Sometimes you've seen pictures where they have some horrible thing sticking out of a person's head, and I don't think that's the way to go when you actually have to puncture the skin. But a gentleman by the name of Elon Musk now has come up with what I think is called the Neuralink, wherein people who are paralyzed from the waist down, we may be right near the frontier where we would be able to help those people if we are able to, say, have computer technology and the digital world to aid those people who are handicapped, as maybe being one of the first things we could put this to, rather than, say, going at it from the standpoint where we're trying to create a robot who would be an extension of us that we could really talk through our mind, and there be a wireless connection. But I think if I had a lot of money to invest, since I wasn't able to say myself have the means of say creating something like that, if I saw someone out there like Elon, other than Elon Musk, doing this, and I had some money to invest in it, that's where I would put my money, in the next frontier, and that is, I believe, again, computer to human interfacing.
Okay.
I believe that's where we're headed.
Okay. Yes, especially now with the AI and everything.
Yes.
There's a photo of you, a younger Cecil, here in the museum, and you're actually you're at the water fountain. Can you talk a little bit about that picture?
When I was about 18 years old, I was working for Jet Magazine, and they sent me to the coast of South Carolina. I think I was down near Hilton Head or Huntington Island, and that was a time when, of course, we didn't have things like cell phones. The landline was about the most technology we had. Telephone were in that status at that time, and as it turned out, it was a non-event. I was to photograph the Reverend I. De Quincy Newman, who was going to put his foot in the Atlantic Ocean and hopefully get arrested, to call attention to the fact that how silly it is for the South Carolina government to have a law that says that black people can't even, swim at the same beach with white people, and awfully crazy laws like that were prevalent during those days. And anyway, it didn't happen because it was a miscommunication, so it was a wasted trip. On the way back, I came up the highway towards approaching Orangeburg in Branchville, between Branchville and Walterboro, and I was thirsty. So it was a long time before you could go into a store and get bottled water. By the way, drinks were sold, of course, in the, um, the cabinets which kept sodas cool, but no water was then being offered.
Right.
So I stopped at this filling station, and it had a water fountain that was on the near the bay where they repaired cars, and I got out of my car, left the door open. Rendell Harper, who accompanied me, saw me drinking out of the white um, fountain, and he took the camera that was on the seat. He really, like I did, also loved photography, and he just snapped a picture of me at the fountain. And then when I got back in, he went to the water fountain, and I snapped a picture. So there's a picture out there of him. And so that's how that picture occurred. And of course, there was not a law against drinking out of a white water fountain, as it was with education, where there were laws on the books that said that black and white people cannot be educated in the same environment. But the customs and traditions in little towns all over the state of South Carolina had their own way of dealing with things like that. It's just something that a store owner could put on his water fountain.
Right.
For that matter, even there were like white waiting room, white restrooms in even courthouses. In fact, I was run out of the Orangeburg courthouse for trying to take a picture of the white only waiting restroom. But my mother found out that I did that, and of course I got a chewing out because that could have been a dangerous thing given the times, because that was very definitely, I was very definitely defying the racial things that were going on at the time, and it was kind of dangerous looking back. So that's how that picture occurred.
Okay.
I thought I would give you a kind of complete 180 degrees how that picture occurred.
And it went viral. It's a beautiful picture. It went viral. My last question for you: how can people support the Cecil Williams Museum? And even, let's say if they would like you to take their photos, because I know you're still a photographer. What can they do to support the museum?
Well, in photography, the most profitable days in photography, so far as portraits and weddings like that, are long gone. There are in Orangeburg probably 200 photographers. In Columbia, probably 5,000 photographers. So the advantages of being a photographer in America today are very, it's an overcrowded profession. What I do in photography today, though, is I retouch and restore photographs. And that's something that it takes a little bit more talent and more time, and something that's needed and it's not overcrowded. But people can support the museum, of course, for what we feel now is the what we're really interested in. That is by visiting the museum. By the way, there's no charge for visiting our museum. We were able to get a grant from companies like Volvo and BMW and Dominion, that we getting those grants enabled us to defray an admission fee to the museum. So we don't charge anything. We do accept donations, and donations are very important. We have donations. I decided to stop our membership kind of relationship with the museum, because with memberships you have to kind of keep up with it when the membership expires, when it starts, and the features and that kind of thing. So we just merely came up with a method of if individuals would like to support what we're doing, even a child can give us $1, and there's a category for that, but we don't call it a membership. But we do call it a charter support, is the way we term it. So from just $1, of course, individually by itself does not mean much, but when you put that with maybe $10 or $50, $100, that counts. So every dollar helps us. The city and the county, and we hope some federal and state funds will enable us to, say, build the museum at the railroad corner. But the operation of the museum is something that we have to do in-house with our museum 501c3. So any donations coming into the museum would help us to be able to reach out and employ full-time individuals to run this museum. And that is not the case now. I don't even derive a salary from the operation and what I do with the museum right now. But we want to reach out and hire the best museum director in the entire United States to run the museum here in Orangeburg. I'm a photographer. I'm not a museum director, and we feel that South Carolina deserves the best person in the seat who would be able to prepare the exhibits and do a museum as you would expect a museum. And we want to have a world-class museum for people to see. Interstate 26 from Columbia to Charleston offers Orangeburg a wonderful opportunity because at Interstate exit 145, 149, and 154, you can come into Orangeburg, and us being a small town, 100,000 cars a day pass along the interstate. If they came into those exits in Orangeburg, that would mean more employment for people. That would mean the stores here would benefit from tourism. So, in my opinion, the future of Orangeburg is tourism. We should take advantage of the history and our relationship with our neighbors right down there in Summerton, South Carolina. I believe that Summerton is only, the town of Summerton would be only a few years away from being discovered as an excellent place in America to visit because it hasn't changed very much since the days of segregation. But there is where so much history that heretofore was not known, but now the focus is beginning to happen with Clarendon County, and we're only 30 miles or so from Clarendon County. So we're in an excellent position for change to happen, and we hope that people will support our museum and be able to help us to continue this journey towards making this a world-class museum.
Okay. And what are the hours that anyone can come and visit?
Because we have no full-time employees, we have no standard hours of operation. We do everything by appointment. And we try to do tours, however, like at 10:30 and 2:30. And that way, there are other things we can do. I am still employed at Clarendon University as Director of Historic Preservation. So I have, like you might say, a full-time job. And then between that and then photography and the museum, you can kind of imagine that I have a busy day every day. But I love doing it, and I don't think of it as work. I feel very grateful that I have these opportunities to engage in these activities.
And, and I know your mom would be so proud of you and all that you've been able to do and everything.
I think I think my mother and father are the DNA and all the things that they, again, I am very proud to be a child of Cecil and Ethel Williams and my sister Brenda, who has all helped me to be the person I am today. And the wisdom and the intellect and all that comes from my parents. And of course, was so blessed by them. And they supported everything that I did all through my growing up. And of course, sent me to school and endured. And when there was a hole in my pants, got it repaired. So your parents are so much responsible for children growing up, and I'm so happy that I had parents that guided me to along the path that I took.
Okay. Well, it has been such a pleasure to interview you today, Mr. Cecil. Thank you so much. You have been a pillar in our community and an amazing person in African American history. So again, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming, and thank you for taking an interest, and thank you as a young lady entrepreneur. You, from the time that I've known you, have also a great degree of entrepreneurship, and I encourage you to continue and don't let. Sometimes when I have had an opportunity to talk with you, when it just doesn't seem enough hours in the day, I've tried to make a way anyway because you have a gift and I hope that you continue the way that you're doing, because when you meet an obstacle, if you meet something that just doesn't come out exactly like you want to, you got to have that tenacity to push a little harder. And I believe that you are a person that has that kind of talent, and so I encourage you to continue what you're doing.
Thank you. As a writer and journalist, I definitely take what you just said into consideration. I really appreciate your advice. Again, thank you, Mr. Cecil. And fun fact, guys, Mr. Cecil and I have the same birthday, as well as the break in term.
A different a year date though.
Yes.
But thank you very much for being here.
Thank you again.